Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is our first webinar. We're covering business cybersecurity topics, and we're handling it in a quick tip style format. So it's very concise, to the point, no fluff, no sales, no extra talk, hopefully. So bear with me. This is our first one, so we'll see how this goes. All right. Today, we're going to be talking about staying safe online 101. And this is not going to be really high level. This is covering a lot of information from a user perspective. So from your perspective, using the computer, a lot of the things you're going to run into, a lot of the common threats you'll run into online. So that's where we're going today. We're not going to get into any tech details. It's not going to be deep. It's all should be pretty easy to understand. So a little bit about me. Most of you know me, Mario DiMarcantonio. I've been in IT for quite a while. I've been doing this since the early 90s. Most of my experience is in the systems administration, working with network support. So I deal a lot with interacting with people and the tech. So I really enjoyed it. I'm the owner of the company now. This is our team. You probably know most of them. They're all tier 3 techs. Billy Green is our team lead and our senior tech. Toby is also a senior tech, and so is James. You may have also seen some of our consultants that we use as well. We've got a lot of talent in our consultant pool too. Too much to talk about there though. So cybersecurity is a huge topic. These are some of the things that are involved in, like, this is the cybersecurity realm. A lot of the things we deal with. So on our side, from an IT perspective, we're always talking about these words here. We're not going to delve into much of anything on this screen. We're just going to talk about a few little pieces because I don't want to overwhelm you. We will have some future webinars on some of these things that you might be interested in. Most of this is going to be very useful and concise no matter what we do, but I think you're going to find this beneficial. So as IT people, our job is to protect you. So that's what we do. So a lot of times we're just in the background. We have tools, we have systems in place, we have the talent in place. Our job is to set up, like Fort Knox, the protection around you as the users and around your data. So that's primarily what we do. We have all kinds of things that keep the hackers out. They're always on. We get alerts when things happen. But there is an important piece of this, and hackers are aware of it too, that we need you to help us because they're after you as the target. Oh, great. So there's the first technical difficulty. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm trying to show here is you're the target. So hackers know we protect these systems. They will sometimes try to attack that way, but they really like to go for the people who are using the computer. So people who are using the computers, the receptionists, the C-level, everybody in between, because they know that if they can get to you, then they can get to whatever you have access to. And they've had very good success at tricking people into doing things that totally bypass our IT system sometimes because we're protecting from a different angle. So today we're going to cover a few different things. We're going to talk about 3 common problems. We're not going to get too deep. These are just the things you're going to run into every day, pretty much. We'll talk about those, and we're going to talk about some simple things that you can do to protect yourself online. So these are the common problems that we see as IT people. The first one, and you've probably experienced some of this firsthand in your personal lives and in business too. Email scams and phishing. We're going to bulk those together because they pretty much operate the same way. You'll look for similar things and do certain things in response. We'll also talk about viruses and malware. I'll tell you what malware is here in a second. And then we're going to talk about some bad password habits that a lot of us have. Even IT people have bad password habits because we're human sometimes, but it's something that we all need to work on. So let's talk about the first one, scams and phishing emails. So I'm going to show you how to spot a phishing email. So here are some common things to look for. First of all, I wanted to mention before we get into the material here, if you do have questions or you think about questions during the presentation, there's a Q&A button in Zoom. Just post them there, and I'm going to try to answer if we've got time at the end. I'm not sure how this is going to lay on the clock, if we're going to have an extra time or not, but I'm trying to save a few minutes for questions at the end if you have any. So just click on the Q&A button, put your question in there. I'll try to address some of those at the end if you have any. All right, so for email, phishing and scam emails, they're all kind of the same approach. So it's somebody who's got your email address, they're targeting you, and the email message comes in. And here's some common things to look for. So the first one, the message is sent from a public email domain. So first of all, most business emails come from a business domain. It'll rarely ever come from Gmail. This is a common tactic. They may have somebody's name. They're trying to, it's called spoofing the name. So they may have your CEO's name in the name field, and it may look like it's from them. But if you look at the reply to address or the email address they're using, a lot of times it says something at gmail.com or outlook.com or AOL, or it's something else other than a business. This is common because these email addresses are really easy to spin up. They can use them, they can create new ones and delete them really quick. So they like to use these. So be on the lookout for that. The other one's a little tricky. This next one, looking for misspelled domain names. So I put an example up here of allpro.com, for example. Online on your computer, certain letters look the same. So in this case, allpro.com, I spelled it with 2 lowercase l's correctly the first time. But the next example, allpro.com, looks the same, but it has 2 capital I's in it. So sometimes they can try to pretend like they have your domain, like it's from your domain, but they're really just spoofing these, or they're transposing these letters to look like your domain. And we'll get to some things you can do here in just a second. But what you can do here is, if you have any doubt, you can actually copy it, just highlight it and copy the domain and paste it in a document, make it all caps, make it all lowercase, and see what, this is if you have like a gut feeling that something's wrong, you can do that to kind of check it, and that'll help you. But this is a really tricky way. They'll do this with websites, they'll do this with emails. And it's at first glance, because we're all busy, we just look at the email and it seems right, and we don't even catch it. And that's what they're depending on, is they want us to miss it. So this is probably the most common thing you'll see. This next one, emails poorly written. So, I mean, Chinese doesn't have plurals, for example. So you'll see a lot of times you can't make a word plural in Chinese, or that you can't, and they don't do it by nature. So a lot of times that'll come through in how they write the email. It's just choppy. The grammar's bad. Sometimes there's misspellings. You just get the sense that it's not professional. And usually that bottom option, trust your gut, that's what all this boils down to. A lot of times you get a feeling, like when you get an email, you just like, it doesn't feel right, that this isn't really from the CEO, or the spelling's not quite right, or this is not how they talk normally. They have a certain style, or they may sign their name if say the name is Matthew legally, but they go by Matt and they sign it Matthew. You kind of know, you just kind of get a sense that this is not like the person, and your gut is trying to tell you this is not right. The other thing they'll try to do is they'll attach links or attachments. This is really common. They want you to do something. If it's a scam, they may not ask you to click anything. They may just want you to reply. So there's a scam going around. You may have seen it. It's a gift card scam. You'll get an email. It'll sound like it's somebody from the company. A lot of times they hit up somebody who's new to the firm, and they'll say, hey, don't tell anybody, but I'm trying to surprise people with these gift cards. Can you do this for me on the down low? Don't tell anybody. That's one scam. They're not trying to get you to click anything, but they want the person to act on what they're saying. The other thing is phishing can come in through email. And phishing is just simply where they're trying to get confidential information from you in any way that they can. So either replying with it or clicking a link that goes to a website that looks like your webmail login or whatever, and you put in your username and password, and then it doesn't work. Now they've got your password and username. So that's phishing. Spear phishing is when they target, like they're going to target one person in the company and use them, like they're going to target the one person. And whaling is when they go after a C-level. or somebody that can transfer money. So look for the suspicious attachments, links. Usually there's some kind of sense of urgency in these emails too. And sometimes it's silly, like, your IT department is not going to lock you out without any notice, or, that's what they do. They try to like tell you, oh, you got to click this now. Your account's going to be locked tonight. They want you to click, and they want you to not pay attention to everything else and just get nervous and click. And they've had a lot of success. And I would say probably 80% of the threats coming in, 70-80% of the threats coming in right now are targeting users, and it comes in through email one way or another. That's huge. Like they're going after people because they know people are the weakest link right now. But as we get educated and as we start to be able to spot some of this, that's gonna decrease over time. But right now, it's a huge market for them, and they make a lot of money off people. When in doubt, listen to your gut and just delete the thing, because more times than not, you can check with your IT people also, but more than likely, it's safe to delete if you get a bad feeling about it. And if it's important, they usually will call you back or they'll email again. All right, here's an example of an email that's bad. In this case, it's a wire fraud transfer. It's a wire transfer fraud email. This is pretty common in business. A lot of times these will come in the background. These attackers, this is all they do all day. And they're not always out of the country, but a lot of them are based in Nigeria, North Korea. This is all they do. So they try to just get in, get out, get you to transfer some money, and they're gone. If you're C-level, CFO, if you have access to transferring, if you're the office manager, you're going to see these if you haven't already. So look for things like this one isn't too bad, other than the attachment at the end. I think the English is pretty good, but this is somebody who's just crafted an email to look like it's coming from Richard Jones. Do you know Richard? Is this how he usually talks? Is this unusual? Is this an unusual request? Is that how he signs his name? Look at the history of the email too. Was that a real conversation or not? Because it's really easy for them to create these fake trails of conversations that never happened and make you think that they've already talked. They know how to put the little RE colon in your subject line, or the FWD colon, to make it look like the email's been forwarded or responding to, things like that. This is a good example of maybe something Chinese, because they don't have plurals. So they say Weixing wiring instruction, singular and not plural. That might be something that catches you or goes across your radar. Anyway, this is just an example of something you might see and how you might spot it. It's all of the things we just talked about. So let's go on to the next one, malware. And that's a confusing term, even to some IT people. They don't really understand what malware means. But basically, malware it encompasses everything that's bad. So if it's a bad piece of software trying to do something bad on your computer, it's malware. They come in all different shapes, sizes, flavors. You've probably heard of spyware, adware, junkware, things like that. Viruses, they all kind of come in one like this. This is the word that covers them all. We're going to talk about today ransomware just a little bit because it's so important. Ransomware is probably what'll happen in reality is they come in through email. They'll send you an email. They'll trick the person to click something into clicking something, and then that is a program that gets executed on your network. And the next thing you know, it's going crazy behind the scenes, and everybody can't get into the server after that. So it's encrypted, it's locked down. They want you to pay a ransom. So that's why ransomware has been in the news quite a bit in the last few years. It's one of the reasons why cyber insurance is getting so expensive, because they're having to pay these ransoms. They're having to pay for remediation and forensics and all this other stuff that happens when you have a breach or a ransomware attack. So it's a big deal, and it's, in my opinion, it's the number one business disruptor as far as malware is concerned, because it can shut you down. And when you can't work, that's not a good thing, because you're not making money. Here's the general rule. Don't trust anybody. I know you can trust us But even if you have a doubt of whether we're actually emailing you, texting you, or calling you, call us back on our number and make sure it's us. We do get some people sometimes that'll say, "Is this really you?" Which I like because they're thinking, and I want to see more of that. So that's the general rule. Don't trust anybody with anything. If you have any kind of doubt, just delete it or call your IT people. Um, a lot of this is redundant in the sense that it also applies to scam emails and phishing emails, but it also applies to files. And you can get files in multiple different ways. One of them, the main way, is email. People will send you some kind of attachment. It's a PDF. That's the most common. You'll open the PDF. It'll require a password. You get into there because it's encrypted, and then it's got a link to somewhere, and then they want you to go put your credentials in. Or that file could be a virus. It could be some kind of malware. It could be ransomware. And if all you got to do is double click it, and if you're set up in a certain way to allow that to run, it can just wreak havoc on whatever you have access to. Your shared drives, for example, that's the most common. So if you have shared drives on your local network and that thing starts going crazy, it sees what you see and it has rights to your computer just like you do. And whatever you can do there, it can do. So it's bad. It's a bad day. And sometimes it spreads like crazy. And you don't want to be the person who clicked. That's a bad thing. This is another thing too. So this is a good general rule. Whether you're browsing at home or whether you're browsing online at work or whatever, just avoid those websites that are kind of sketchy. Most of the main websites, like if you go to CNN or Fox News, those main websites are usually okay, generally, not always, because they can get hacked. Websites that are lesser known, like here's a good example. You Google something, you're searching for a new pair of shoes, and you want to get those new shoes, the high heels with the red on the bottom, and you want to find them locally and whatever. And then you Google it, you get a bunch of results. Are you really looking at where you'll get a lot of results, but do you look at where those are going? Because a lot of times they'll prey on common searches for personal things or business. They'll get at the top of the Google list of results. You'll click it, and then next thing you go to an infected website, and that website can inject some software on your computer if the situation is right. You don't have the right protections. I will tell you, our clients, if you're one of our managed clients, especially on the higher end tiers, we've got tools that catch I won't say every single thing, but they're really, really good. So even if you accidentally click something, our tools will usually kick in and catch it for you, but it can't, no tool can replace common sense. So that's what you want to do. You want to listen to your gut, use common sense. So avoid those sketchy kind of websites. Stick with the main ones. Stick with sites medical sites. If you're looking for a health thing, make sure you're going to things like WebMD and not like I've got the cure for cancer right here.com. You don't want to go to places like that. The other way you can get files, you can get them on external drives. So we call them flash drives, external hard drives, USB sticks. You can get them at conferences and things. So anything you can plug in your computer. This would even apply to things like box.com, file sharing sites, anywhere where you can get a file. Don't trust anything you don't know. So if you get the best thing to do is don't get any USB sticks from a conference, especially if you're a company that has a lot of money or you're a C-level, because there are some pretty tricky hackers out there and they will plant things on those little sticks. You'll come home or you go back to work, plug those things in, and next thing you know, they've got their tools in there to have remote access to your system and go to town. So you want to just avoid that kind of thing. They can record your keystrokes. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that can happen when you plug something in that you don't know. So the best policy is don't plug it in if you don't trust it 100%. I've even seen hard drives come off Amazon, and right out of the package, they had an infection, some kind of virus. It was a Trojan, but our tools caught it. But even buying from a reputable source, Amazon, in this case, it was from some other seller that sold through Amazon, but you'd think it was good because it was brand new, quote unquote, but it really wasn't something you could trust. Again, when in doubt, delete it, don't plug it in. That's the general rule. A lot of this just boils down to listening to your gut. Does it feel right? Does it feel like this is right? And most of the time, 99% of the time, you're right. So let's talk about some password problems. I'm gonna get a little drink here. My throat's getting dry. Here are some common things. And I put this picture in here to make you feel bad. I don't know if that's going to remind you of your mother or maybe your wife or maybe that teacher in third grade who scolded you. I don't know. But the point is, don't do these things. Okay, so there are a whole bunch of things that we do just by nature because passwords suck. I mean, it's hard to remember all these passwords because every place requires them. It seems like you're always having to put a password in for everything you do. So what do? You know, we use simple things that we already know. We use names of our pets, names of our, our kids, our anniversaries, our birthdays, things that are easy. And then what else do? We use them everywhere. So we take them and we're, oh, I know this is my favorite password. It's Mario123 exclamation point. That'll make it secure. And then you use them everywhere you go. Well, guess what? Hackers are people too. And a lot of times they figure this stuff out. So we have to fix these problems. So we don't want passwords that are too weak. We don't want to reuse our password. You might see this in the news sometime, password reuse. This is a huge problem because if a hacker gets your password and you reuse it in all kinds of places, for example, say your login password for your email is the same password you have at work. And say it's your credit card portal too, so for your Visa. That's bad because what they're going to do is they're going to buy this. Look at the last bullet. Your old passwords are for sale on the dark web. Guaranteed, they are. We get reports. We have tools. We see it all the time. All the old passwords come in. We see the new exposures. They are out there and they buy them for cheap and they plug them in their little systems and then they just start banging on your webmail. And if they can get in, great. Then they go to town and do some things. And then they send email as you. That's bad. Or they may try, if they're really sophisticated, they may try using that on your VPN or your systems at work just to kind of hit it a little bit and see if you're using the same password there too. They're smart and they know what they're doing. So we have to, as users of the computer, we have to make sure our passwords are strong. They're not reused. We need to make sure we change them periodically. Don't ever write them on paper. I mean, these are some bad things. You might think like, what is the worst thing if I put my password on a Post-it note? It's in the office, right? And it's safe. Well, I don't know if you heard of this guy, but you don't want to be this guy. This is the guy who years ago, I think it was about 5 years ago, it made the news for a little time. And this guy posted on social media. He worked for the Hawaiian Nuclear something alert agency. I don't remember. But look at the little arrow in the circle. He's got his password on a Post-it note on his screen, and he's posting this, "Hey mom, look where I work" photo on his social media. You can probably get some information off his badge too. So they used this. Attackers saw this, zoomed in, saw his password, and then they sent out this fake alert. So they thought there was a real nuclear attack coming from, I don't know which state, but in Hawaii, that everybody was freaking out for a day. And then they figured out, oh, it's just a hoax. Obviously, there's not really ICBMs coming at us. It's because this guy, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't work there anymore. So you don't want to be that guy or girl because writing down your passwords is just bad. Anybody that walks by your computer can see them. They're not secure, and neither is putting them under your keyboard, in your drawer that's unlocked. Those kinds of things people will figure out. I think I got everybody's little secret spots there. All right, so this is how you can be a password superhero. The first bullet point is really what's going to save the day for you, because as complex and hard as it is to remember all these passwords, there is a solution called a password manager app. LastPass is a good example. It's free, lastpass.com. You can get the personal version of it for free. It also integrates with your worker version if you use that at any of our sites. What it does for you is you load it on your phone, you load it on your computer, so that when you're browsing or when you're logging into something, it will fill the password for you. And it takes care of all these other bullets underneath as well. So having to have unique, strong, long passwords is really a lot easier with these apps because you don't even have to remember it. You don't have to come up with it. It generates them for you. It fills them for you. All you got to do is remember your one big master password to get into the password app, which you want to hold that somewhere, like tell your spouse in case you die. But other than that, nobody should know that password, and don't ever forget it because you'll lose all your data. Other than that, password managers are really great. But they are keeping all your eggs in one basket. So you want to be really confident that you remember that master password. LastPass is probably my main recommendation for that. There's another one, I think it's called, I can't remember the name of it. You can Google password managers. I would stick with something like LastPass. It's encrypted. They don't even see your information, so you're safe. Like, you're the only one that sees your information, and it makes everything else convenient. If you don't use a password manager, be sure that you're using unique passwords on everything. So you don't want to use the same password everywhere. Make sure they're different. At a minimum, if you have some junk accounts or something you don't care about and there's no risk, those can maybe be the same password and not secure. I mean, as long as nothing confidential gets exposed, you don't have to worry so much about those. But it's just a good habit to make unique passwords for everything. And these password managers make it so simple. Change your passwords at least once a year. I know it's kind of a pain, but with the password managers, it's super easy too. If you're in business, we might do this a little sooner than that, like maybe every 180 days or so. Make sure if you're making your own password, you're making a strong password. So I put an example, something like this. You would type it like that, literally something like this with zeros, threes, something you can remember. It's an easy word to remember, but it's also difficult to crack. And I'll tell you too, the longer the password, the better. You want to stay over 10 characters if you can, 10 or more, because the length of the password makes it incredibly, just about impossible to crack. With the technology that's out today, and even in the foreseeable future, it would take years and years and years for them to crack a password if it was over 10 or more characters. So even just the length of the password is important. This last thing, MFA, if you've never heard this, I know at first it's kind of confusing. It just stands for multi-factor authentication. Use it everywhere that has it. Google has it for your Gmail. All the financial sites have it. Your credit cards have it. Social media accounts. Your email should have it, especially like Office 365. They all have it, and you need it. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you what it is first. So MFA, it's a big word, but all it means is that you have to have two things to log in. You have to have something which is what we're used to this, username and password. And you have to have something, that you have. In most cases, that's your device, your personal device. Sometimes that means, in this case, for example, you're going to get a text. You're going to log in with the username and password, and you'll get a text. There's also apps for this too that generate these codes. But the point is, you got to have both multi-factors, like sometimes it's called two factors. You can have more than two factors also, but this is the most common: username, password, and a code. And what that means is, even if somebody temporarily got your password and username and could try to log in, you get a code on your phone, and then something's up. Somebody's trying to log in, because obviously it's not you. And in most cases, I mean, there are some technical things in the background that can cause that. Sometimes it's a person trying to log into your account. You'll want to immediately change your password if you suspect that, and keep MFA enabled. But this prevents people from logging in as you most of the time from anywhere. Like, they can hack in from any location of the internet a lot of times. And if they just have username and password, there's no MFA, they're in. And that's it. If you haven't been changing your passwords, or it's easy to guess, they're in. And then they do bad things. They learn about you, they download your stuff. Then you got discovery and forensics and all kinds of headaches after that. And that's not a place you want to be. So here's a quick recap of everything. I'm not going to go through this verbatim, but this is just everything. If you want to take a picture of the screen, or if you'd like a copy of the slide deck, just email me afterward and I can send you a copy. There will also be a recording that I'll send out to the people who can make it, and we'll post it on our website. But these are just, in a nutshell, everything we talked about in regard to malware, scam emails, and better password habits. So let me look at some of these questions. I think we got one so far. Anyway, if you enjoyed the webinar, we're trying to keep it like this, short, sweet. And I see we're at 10:30 right now, so I'm going to end real quick. Let me look at the question. But we do these every Monday, every first Monday of every month. If you'd like to join us, they're going to be quick hit style, just straight and to the point. Let me check my question. If you want to stay on, feel free. Taylor is asking, do you guys have any clients affected by last month's QNAP ransomware attacks? Luckily, we weren't affected. No, we don't deploy QNAPs too often. It's pretty rare. So no, we don't have any affected by that. And I think we got you all fixed up too. Thank goodness. All right, thanks for the question. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you watching this first webinar. I apologize if it was a little choppy, but if you are interested in getting on our list and would like to be on the list of webinars in the future, just shoot me an email and let me know. All right, take care. Have a good day.